Welcome to Stay Treat 2020 by You Define Wellness. I'm Rhonda Bullish-Lampo and your host for this session. We are delighted today to have as our lunchtime keynote speaker, Kevin Carton of KC Coaching Incorporated, to help us with standing firm while your world is shaking. Kevin specializes in empowering people to discover and live their soul's purpose. He has spoken on stage in front of thousands of people, which led to him being described as a young Bob Proctor and the next Tony Robbins. As a sought-after speaker, trainer, and coach, Kevin's workshops and coaching programs have helped hundreds of people break through limitations and achieve greater results than they've known before. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Rhonda. I really appreciate it. And I'm really thrilled to be with you all here. So I'm so thrilled to be sharing this lesson on standing firm while your world is shaking, because we are facing some shaky times in this world. Now, what I'll share with you, these lessons are not just specifically for this time, although they are really apt for this time in this human history. But you can use this in any walk of life, any time of life when you feel that your circumstances are shaking. And so in our time together, I'll share with you these principles. There's three main premises of what happens as we go through dark times or challenging times. And there's also then three tools to use so that you can walk away from this time more empowered and more in alignment with who you want to be, rather than what happening with the most of the world and most people is shutting down. So in standing firm while your world is shaking, you'll learn how these principles will keep that solid foundation under you, even when everything else seems to be rattling. And I've learned these principles over the last 7 years of my own life. I've applied them, which I'll share a story with you later on. And just know that these are time tested. They are proven to work if you work them. That's the challenge. I believe that many of us know what to do, but it's the matter of reminding ourselves as we go through these times to actually apply what we already know. So many things I'm sharing may just be reminders, and it's a way that you could take it deeper into your life. So, we're in difficult times, we're in challenging times, and really unprecedented times. Things like this, has happened in the world, has never happened before. And so we can actually use this time to catapult us towards the vision that we already have for our life. And there's a way of working through that. And really how we use this time, it sets us up for our future. And how we use it it changes the trajectory of our life. Like, there's a great example of how a 1 degree shift in an airplane's flight path from, say, like Los Angeles to New York, 1 degree shift at the beginning, you will literally end up in a different state if you stay on that 1 degree shift. So in this case, it's when we make a 1 degree shift in the direction we want to go in, later down the line, it'll take us much farther than we have ever thought it was possible. So we can use these times that seem really challenging, seem hard, or seem difficult, or seem things that we don't want happening, like unpredicted circumstances or unpleasant feelings that are coming up. But as we navigate these waters in a way that moves us forward, we can really have a life that we want to live in the future. So the mindset to go into this with is, I want to set this up with a story. So because we're facing some really challenging times. However, I really believe that many of the things that we're facing are very different compared to what other people have experienced in their life. And if we take it into perspective of what is going on right now and take a long view of the challenges we're facing, because a lot of things are happening, like businesses are shutting down, people are being out of jobs, we're in a recession. So when we look at the appearances, the circumstances, it may seem daunting or bad, but when we look at it with a different perspective, it could mean a whole different thing for us, because we are meaning-making machines. We make meaning of every single thing in our life. So we can either say something is bad or we can say something's good, even when the appearances seem like it's bad. So the story I want to share with you to begin is about a man named Viktor Frankl. Now, Viktor Frankl was an Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist, and he was in the early 1900s. And when the whole World War happened, he was taken into a Nazi concentration camp. And so he was faced with some extremely challenging circumstances. Now, it's very different than what we're facing. However, draw the parallels between how he faced these situations and how we can face the same, these situations we're facing in our life with the same mindset. So Viktor Frankl, when he was taken into Auschwitz, the concentration camp, his family was taken away from him. So his wife, his kids, they were put into separate concentration camps. So he was alone. So first off, I mean, the deep, meaningful relationships in his life was taken from him. And as he was in that camp for months at a time, he still wanted to create his life work. And so he started to write his manuscript, a book that he wanted to publish about, his way of viewing psychology and psychiatry, and how we can, look at circumstances and not let them have us. And so he was writing that whole manuscript literally on a piece of toilet paper. And he kept that safe by shoving it in this in a slit in the 1-inch mattress that he had. And so these very difficult circumstances, and he was doing what he can with what he had. However, in time, the Nazis found his manuscript, and they were furious with him. So they took him out into the field, and they stripped him naked. They burned his manuscript right in front of him. And then they finally noticed that he had one last thing that they didn't take from him, which was a gold wedding band on his finger. And it was the last, in writing about this, he said it was the last vestige of the life that he had known before. And as it was demanded from him, as he took off that ring, he said that he tapped into and found a place within himself that he called the last authentic freedom that we as humans have. And that freedom, which is not only the last authentic freedom, but is the authentic freedom, is the ability to choose how we respond to circumstances and not, cause ourselves to get wrapped up in the situation, wrapped up in our what is coming at us, but rather going deep within. And so when he touched that place inside of himself, he discovered he can view his oppressors not as someone that he hates, but some people that are just unaware, that are undeveloped. They have no idea really the harm that they're doing deep down. And so he found that place with himself to know that he can choose a viewpoint that is different than what is the normal thinking that would, most people would, and most people did think. They hate, people would be in concentration camps, probably hated the people who imprisoned them. But in his view, it's like that if someone's imprisoned, there must be an imprisoner. And so that it's both people are locked into that situation. Now, I share that story, and again, that, our situation, what we're facing right now, is very different. Maybe a lot easier in perspective than what Viktor Frankl went through. Now, he was saved, and the war ended, and he got out, and he founded a whole new way of relating with circumstances, and he called it logotherapy, and it's massively successful in helping people overcome challenges. So, as we go through this lesson today, just remind yourself of that place within yourself that you can view these circumstances, the challenges that we're facing right now, and not get wrapped up in them, not hate it, or not take it into a perspective that is ultimately limiting and is contractive. So ultimately what Viktor Frankl was doing there was using his mind, choosing a perspective that it was within him that caused for expansion. Now, of course, would he prefer not to be in that situation? Yes. Would we prefer not to be in this situation now with the coronavirus and being quarantined and everything? Absolutely. And, this is not to make it okay, but it's how we use our minds in these situations that can, again, set us up for a future that we do want to live. Because here's the thing, we will get through this time. Not maybe, absolutely. Even if the worst case scenario, we have people who are loved ones who are lost, and that's it's hard to go through, and we will get through this as a species, as all of us. We will get through this. Yes, there will be mourning. Yes, there will be grief, but we will get through this. So that's a guarantee. However, how we get through it has everything to do not only with our experience right now, but again, what is the possibilities for our future. So to talk about that, there's three main premises, as I mentioned, three main premises of how we go through these challenging circumstances. And this comes from what's called The Dark Night. And it's a poem by St. John of the Cross. And it's a Christian mysticism, this story. And it's about the dark night of a soul. And in its writing, in this poem, St. John of the Cross writes that when the dark night comes, notice the wording there. He says when. This means that it's in our human experience, and this is the first premise, that difficult times are inevitable in our human experience. They happen. We all go through challenging times. And I bet if everyone was on, and actually I encourage you to type in, like, have you had a challenging time in your life prior to this? Have you faced circumstances that you would prefer not to have? I would guarantee, I see Rhonda nodding her head. Absolutely. I would agree with that in my own life too. We all have. And so once we accept that, we know that, then we can face these challenging circumstances with a new perspective. And it starts to open up our beliefs that it should be a different way. It shouldn't be, the common thing is this shouldn't be happening. This is bad. It would be so much better if it wasn't happening. Now, again, on the surface and appearances, of course we would prefer it to not be happening, because there's sickness, there's death, there's things that are really challenging, and also that we are, again, mourning, but it's not inevitable. This is an inevitable part of the human experience, so it's not meant to be happening. So I guess a better way of saying it, it's meant to be happening. The things that are happening right now are exactly as they should be. And so difficult times are inevitable. And there's a great book. I have it in my library back here, but I'm not going to go grab it. But there's a great book by a man named Joseph Campbell. He wrote a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And that book describes what's called the hero's journey. And it's a cyclical process. And the simple touch points are in every great story that we've ever heard of, that there is a hero that's being called to adventure. And then as they're called to adventure on this journey of achieving their dream, whatever that is, like getting the princess, or having money and fame, or whatever it is, then there is challenges like a dragon to slay, a sea to cross, a villain to overcome. There's always some challenging circumstance. So there's this hero's journey. Now, in this hero's journey that we're facing, we're all really in this spot right now of it's challenging. So again, we must know that this is normal. It's meant to happen. It's meant to be here. And so difficult times are actually a part of our human evolution. And another way of looking at this is that we live in the land of polarity. In this universe, there is up, there's down, there's hot, there's cold, there's good, there's bad, there's right, there's wrong, there's left, there's right. There's polarity. There's an equal and opposite of each of our experiences, and that creates our human experience. Because if everything was just good, we wouldn't really, it'd be honestly be boring. And so, not to say this is like an exciting time really, but it's that there is this polarity. It's meant to be this way, that there is this contrast. And in these times of contrast, we actually can have the experience of going within and tapping into and discovering our true source, which is spirit, which is the universe, which is God. And so in these times of extreme contrast, there's an even more opportunity to find that source within. We're going to talk about that. That's part of one of the tools. But so that's the first part, is the first premise is that the dark night will come. It's has to come. It's a part of our human experience. The second premise of this dark night is that this dark night has the ability to cause us to discover a larger version of ourselves. Now, I was getting into that a bit because it's part of that contrast. It's part of our evolution of how we discover more of ourselves. And a way of looking at this I love is if in the dark, you could see the stars clearly. When it's pitch black, you could see the light shining of the stars. And in this dark night of the soul, when we're in circumstances that seem like it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, the light that we find is within ourselves. It's within our minds. It's within our hearts. And so as we start to look within, because this time is a way to look within more, And as we look within, we can start to find and discover and see more of that light shining from within. And so it's an opportunity for us to tap into our potential and get creative, especially, for example, if we're business owners or we have, we're out of a job, or even just like even relating with each other. If we're all like cooped up in like one place, like how do we actually expand our relationships instead of getting at our throats because spend so much time together? It's challenging. However, there is an opportunity for growth. So there's a great analogy with this, is that every acorn can become an oak tree. And that is the opportunity for us here, is that there is a next part of our evolution in this time. It's not that we're putting our dreams on hold or putting our goals on hold. We can do something to move forward and grow even in this time. But if and only if we look at it that way. And so in that analogy of an oak tree, from an acorn, that acorn, each and every acorn has the spiritual DNA of a full oak tree, a full grown oak tree. However, not every acorn becomes the oak tree, because some of them aren't in the environment that is conducive for that growth. So some land on sidewalks, some are picked up by kids and they're taken home and just cherished, so they're not grown into the full selves, or some are eaten by squirrels. So like the acorns that don't grow into the tree is because it's not the right environment. So what is the right environment for us? Now, we're blessed as human beings and spiritual beings to create our own environment. Just look around you. We are literally sheltered by the environments that we create ourselves, by our homes, the things around us. We create that from pure thought, and we fashion that. So of course, our outer environment, yes, we fashion, but what's more important, and especially during this time, is our inner environment. How are we dealing with our own thoughts and emotions as we go through this time? Because if we don't use this time to sharpen and refine our skills of noticing what we're noticing, and choosing thoughts that are in harmony with the life that we want to live, then it's going to be just like as if that acorn was thrown just on a sidewalk. It won't grow because the environment is not conducive for it. So if we want that growth, because we all have that within us, then we must give ourselves that proper environment. And that starts with us. And we can, of course, help others as we help ourselves with that. So that's the second part of the premise of the dark night, is that it has that ability to cause us to grow if we discover that. And the third is that how we navigate this difficult time is essential to who we become in the future and where we end up. Because we can allow this experience to shake us, or it can allow us to shape us. It's one or the other. Because if we're allowing it to shake us, meaning that we are looking at our circumstances, the challenging times we face, and we're agreeing with what we see on the news, with what our friends and family are talking about, is like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible, then that's what it will become. And as the world is shaking around us, we align ourselves with that shakiness that is happening around us. But if the way we allow it to shape us is what we've been talking about. Is instead of getting bitter or angry or resenting what's going on, we accept what is and we move forward with it, and we allow it to change us. We see what's going on and we adapt. That's literally our birthright, is to adapt to circumstances that are challenging and change them as we change. Because we live in a reflective reality, meaning our outer circumstances are reflected by our inner thoughts and emotions. And a simple example is what I shared before, is that our environment, just where we're living, was shaped by someone's thought. Someone had to think up this computer that I'm speaking at. Someone had to think up the chair that you're sitting in, or the walls around you, and how high is it? What color? Maybe you thought of that yourself, because if you repainted your walls. So everything in our environment was first a thought before it became a thing. And so in this time, these challenging times, if we want to move through it with grace, we must discover what thoughts are in alignment with creating that greater experience, that expansion that can be had in this time. And that's how it shapes us. So if we use our energy for this evolution, it will become, that greater version of our life that we want, that we all want, because that's life seeking to express through us. Just because what's going on in the world is shutting down, say, like businesses, that does not shut down our spirit. that does not shut down our dreams and the desire to want more, to have more, to give more, to be more, to do more. That is literally life seeking to express more ever freely and more fully through us. And you see that expression come through literally a blade of grass, just even pressing through cement, seeking light. And the edges of the trees becoming, growing to the green growing edges of its own becoming. We still have that within us, even during this time. And so the way we honor that is by noticing what we're noticing, by moving forward what we can do, and honoring this time. Even though it's challenging, it's meant to be here. And as we accept it, we can move forward. So just want to share a quick story before I share with you those 3 tools. And much of those we've been talking about, but I want to put it in context. The 3 tools of how to walk through this dark night of the soul. But I want to share with you a time in my life when I felt like I was through my own dark night. And again, in terms of the scale of this is much less, but I want to share with you this story in a context of how I use these tools so that I can have a greater life that I'm experiencing today. So my dark night came when I was in school to get my doctorate in pharmacy. And I was in a program to get my doctorate after over 6 years. And I was about 3.5 years in when I started working at a community pharmacy. And I started to see just the same people coming back again and again and again for the same issue. And I just felt horrible about that. I didn't want to promote something that was just keeping someone in the same experience. And I saw that many of the medications that we were dispensing was more of a Band-Aid over the actual problem. And so I felt like I wasn't really helping. And at that time then I felt lost because I had spent almost 4 years in that path. It was very logical for me to stay. And I was even arguing for myself as like, you're going to make great money as a pharmacist. It's a prestigious career. Your parents are really proud of you. And so I had all of these logical thoughts, the common thinking, which a lot of my friends were saying too, just stay in school, finish your degree, and then you could figure out something that you would really want to do and help people. And so I was going along with that path, along with that thinking, but there was this dissonance because again, I felt called to be doing something different. And in the times we're facing today, this is actually a really potent time for many of us, potentially you listening, that it's causing you to think in a different way. Like your circumstances are very different. Your routines and habits are very different. And so you have the time to open up and discover, it's like, what would I really love? And maybe you're having that rattle. It's like, oh, like you're looking at the current conditions like, well, what can I do? Or what's possible? And in common thinking, what you really want to be doing is not possible in this time right now, or it's not the opportune time, it doesn't seem. And so that's exactly where I was. I was facing that. I had no idea, what I would really want to do instead, but I knew that I wanted something different, but it seemed like everything in my current circumstances was saying, no, not now. This is not a good time. And the dark night really hit when I received one of my test scores back at the end of my 4th year. I was in a pharmacy lab with all of my other classmates. We were receiving our test scores back on a small slip of paper. And when I opened up my slip of paper to receive my test score back for my final exam, I realized that I failed a required pharmacy course by 1 point, which meant that I had to repeat an entire year of schooling if I wanted to get my doctorate. And I was just devastated. My heart just sunk to my stomach because first, I was a straight A and B student. I had never failed a class before. So I was disappointed in myself. My mind started to race. Then what will my parents think? The money that to be invested in that extra schooling, the time, what will my friends think? And I caused myself, because I was getting really raced up in my mind, caused myself to pause and just go up and ask my teacher, because I was desperate. I asked her, is there anything I can do for extra credit? And the moment I remember this for the rest of my life. She said, no, I'm sorry. And as I walked away, I was shocked. But as I walked away, I started to realize, and this is one of the tools, I started to accept what had happened. I noticed, like, all right, this is what it is. This is this is just the facts of my life. What am I going to do about it? Okay, what can I do about it? And why? Like, why did this all happen anyway? And ultimately, it was that I created that failure because I was thinking of failure. I was afraid of what would happen if I struck out on my own and left pharmacy school. And what if I failed, achieving my dream that I really wanted or doing something I loved? And so failure was in my mind. So it was repeated in my circumstances. And so when I noticed that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to use that power in a different way. And literally that very day, I discovered and got connected with my mentor. Her name is Mary Morrissey. And she helped me discover, because she's been helping people for over 30 years, discover that power within themselves, that everything is truly created twice, first in thought and then in form. And so I used that time as a springboard, not something that limited me, because a failure or challenging circumstances can cause us to hold back and draw back and just play it safe. The safe move would have been for me to continue on and get my doctorate after 3 more years instead of 2. But I decided to take a bold step in the direction of my dream. And that changed my life forever. I mentioned that 1 degree shift in the beginning of this presentation. That 1 degree shift 6 years ago has led me to where I am today, where I'm thrilled. I own my own business as a life coach. I absolutely love my life. I live in an amazing place in Colorado, and I have amazing relationships. And I am so thrilled by the work that I do in helping clients build their dreams. Now, that was a whole 6-year journey. However, the main point is that you have to choose differently and make that 1 degree shift and know that whatever dark night you're facing, whether it's a failure, things shutting down, challenging circumstances, like, things that are fear-based, like, looking at the current circumstance of our world, like this pandemic, like, it is scary. But if we look at this as a way to, like, let us hold back from giving our true gifts and living a life that we love, then it will just become that for us, because that's what we hold in our mind. So that's my story. And I want to share with you now these 3 tools that I use, and I'll relate them back to my circumstance, my story. So the first I mentioned is staring the circumstance right in the face, which this case, a way to put it is, another way to say it is, dare the dark, because we're talking about this dark night of the soul. So the first tool to use is daring the dark, which means you're staring at it right in the face and you neutralize it. What I mean by neutralize it is we all have a response in our energy and our emotions to what circumstances we're facing and what it means to us. So notice how you're feeling. Just think of the last couple of weeks. What has been your major dominant feeling, the vibration you've been living in? Is it been kind of ho-hum, like, oh, like, I'm bored. Maybe I'm like, this is terrible. My business is shut down. Like, I'm stuck at home, my family, or like, I can't see friends. Like, this is bad. And you're feeling lonely, feeling sad, feeling upset, feeling like a victim. Or that may be your experience, or maybe it just may be very, neutral. Or you may, the key is wanting to change it and shift those emotions from the status quo, what everyone else is feeling, to shifting it to where you can feel expanded in this time. And the way you do that is by first neutralizing it, by first staring it in the face, seeing it for what it is, and knowing that it's real. It's the facts of our life. Because again, we first react to these things as it shouldn't be happening. We place meaning on that as we're meaning-making machines, and we resist it. But there's a spiritual principle that says that what we resist persists, because we're tying our energy to the circumstance we're facing. And as we tie our energy to it, then we're facing it, we're looking at it, it just stays longer. The challenges stay longer because we're empowering it with our focus and our attention. Because where you put your attention, energy flows. So there are things, of course, that we can't personally change, but what we can change is our perception, our how we're looking at these things. And so, because we don't get to not think. That's one thing that we have all in common. We do have thoughts every single moment of our day, even in meditation. Honestly, meditation, I've learned over the last 7 years of meditating, is that it's a one-pointed focus, but you're still having thoughts. They're still flowing. It's just more focused. So we all will have thoughts about what is going on. And so what challenge you face, you must determine and notice what thoughts that you're thinking about your circumstances, about the challenges you're facing, about what you're going through, because what you think will become what your reality will be. And so I want to share with you an exercise to help you tap into this power so that you can neutralize these emotions, these perceptions a lot easier. And we'll just go through with this exercise. So I encourage you, if you are in a place and you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes gently. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And just begin to notice your body. Notice the connection of your clothes against your body. Notice all the parts of your body where you feel your skin is exposed, so maybe you feel a gentle caress of the wind. Notice your body. Now notice parts of your body. Notice, say, your right ankle. Notice your left kneecap. Notice your thighs and the position that they're in right now, whether you're sitting or standing. Notice your belly. Just notice. Notice your heart space and the beating of your heart. Notice the tops of your shoulders. Notice your left elbow and right elbow. Notice the tippy tip of all 10 fingers. Notice the tip of your nose. Notice the top of your head. Just notice. And now turn your noticing ability to your thoughts. Notice what thoughts you've been thinking. Notice, without judgment, what thoughts you may be thinking. Where is Kevin going with this? Notice any thoughts. Maybe this is boring. This is interesting. When is this going to end? Just notice the thoughts. No judgment, just observing. And now, notice your emotions. How are you feeling in this moment? Feeling inspired, happy, confident? You feeling dull, uninspired? You feeling upset, angry? Whatever emotions are coming up for you, just notice. Don't make it wrong. Just observe. Now, ask yourself this question. Who is it within me that can notice my body, but is not my body? Who is it within me that can notice my thoughts, but is not my thoughts? You see, that part of you that can notice, that is your true, authentic nature. That is you, the spirit, the soul that is animating this body. You are that. You can notice what you're noticing. You can notice your thoughts. You can notice your emotions. You can notice your body. And as you gain this power, you can regain the control of what thoughts you're choosing, what thoughts you're allowing in your mind, so that you're allowing more empowering thoughts and kicking out any of the contractive negative thoughts that are keeping you in limitation. Just notice. I'll take one more deep breath in. Exhaling out. And gently open your eyes. So that power that you just activated, that ability within yourself to notice what you're noticing, that power is how you observe. You look at the circumstance, you look at the current reality and dare the dark. You look at it and you tell yourself a thought that is more empowering. That is, you're observing, you're noticing, so that you're choosing thoughts that you want to think in these challenging times, even when there's pressure. Because this is the truth. No matter what level of pressure we face in life, we are exactly able to match that as we grow. But it will cause us to grow. And there's a principle in physics that about how we all have pressure pressing in our body and on our body right now. There's literally 14 pounds of atmospheric pressure pressing in on each square inch of your body right now. It's thousands of pounds of pressure pressing into your body, but the system of our body, from our bones to our blood coursing through our veins and all of the tissues and organs, all of that internally is exerting an equal amount of pressure outward. So we feel like there's no pressure at all on our body. And not once did we wake up in our lives and think, oh my gosh, I hope I'm not crushed today by the atmospheric pressure around me, or I hope I don't explode from all the pressure within me. It's an equal match, because we live in this exquisite universe that is precise, that is exactly matched to the challenges or the pressure that is faced. And so whatever's going on in your life right now, whatever challenges you face in this pandemic, you're up to that job. There's a great quote that says, God doesn't qualify the called. God calls I mixed that up. God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies the called. Meaning this one power, one life will help you rise to the occasion to face the challenges you face and overcome them with ease, as long as you open up to that and not resist what is happening, because this is here for your growth. So, and if you absolutely must, because this is challenging when we're facing circumstances that cause a trigger in our emotions, you can schedule a pity party if you must. We all have pity parties here and there, but you can schedule a pity party. And just like any party, there is a beginning and there is an end. So if you find yourself like you want to neutralize what is you're facing, and you don't want to have these negative emotions about it, then just give yourself the space to have that pity party, to just get upset, be angry, do whatever you need to do, but make sure there's an ending to that. So you have a start time and an end time, maybe a day, maybe a couple hours, but just like any good party, there is an end. It's like, we're done, party's over. And then you move on, and you use that power to noticing what you're noticing to choose a different thought after that pity party. So you can literally say, that was then after the pity party, and this is now, to empower you to choose that more expansive thought. And so that's the first tool. The second tool I'm going to give you is what we've been talking about. It's the underlying foundation of all of this is that there is a power. There is a power that is within you, is within me, is within all of us, that is greater than all things. This and all challenges, this one power, one presence, one life. Call it God, call it spirit, call it the universe, call it, there's so many names like Jesus or Krishna or Buddha. There's so many labels for whatever power this is, but there is one power, one life. And science is now coming to prove it, to prove that. In quantum physics, they have now really looked to the depths of what makes up matter, which is atoms. And then below atoms, there's subatomic particles. And then even below that, there are quantum particles. And these quantum particles, they're all the same. At the core of our being, we're all the same. It's just these, what scientists call these dancing filaments of light. It's energy. It's just this one unified field of energy. And so as we know and accept and acknowledge that there is this one power, one presence, one life, we can align with that power to overcome these challenges and circumstances. Because if we had to do it on our own, yes, some of these challenges and these circumstances might seem overpowering. And we might seem like, oh my gosh, this is too much for me to handle. But you can say, my God, and then whatever label you want to use for, or the universe and I, or my higher power, my higher self, whatever label you want to use, my higher power and I, we're bigger than this. We are more than this. And so this is a way, again, of becoming more of who you're meant to be, more of your potential self as you align with that power, because you are more than the circumstance. And really, as you align with that power, you're more than the circumstance, because you have a portal, you have an access point to the infinite, to this higher power that can give you answers and solutions to whatever you're facing. So the final tool I'll give you, because I know we're closing in on time, is the third tool is harvest the good. Is look at the circumstance, the challenges that you face, and see the good that can come from this. There's a great quote from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, where he says, every adversity has within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But that seed must be found, planted, and nurtured over time. So just like the analogy of the acorn, it must be planted in fertile soil. And the fertile soil here is your mind. So you must focus on, all right, what's good can come from this? And not just think of it once, but keep your attention on this. Because it can be very hard to look at what's going on in the world right now and see what good can really come from this. And especially good in your world. Because we've been seeing I've been seeing many amazing stories of positive things that have been coming from this pandemic, these challenges. But now I encourage you to tune within. What good can come from in your life from this challenging circumstance? So ask yourself that, find that seed, and then you must plant it. And then it may not be readily apparent. So that's why you must keep asking yourself, keep coming back to that question and find the good. So with that shared, I'll end that here. And there's one final conclusion. I'm going to share with you a story or a poem, really, by a man named Rumi. He's an amazing poet and from centuries ago. And he wrote this poem about our human experience. And he says, it's as if a king has sent us into a far and distant land. And this king, meaning the one power, one presence, one life, call it God, source, spirit, the universe. This king sent us into a far and distant land, which is human earth, human birth. We're in this human experience, sent us into this far and distant land for one purpose, to accomplish one thing. And if we don't accomplish this one thing, but accomplish 100 other things, it'll be as if we had accomplished nothing. And what I believe that one thing is to discover who we really are as spiritual beings having a human experience, to know that we're more than the circumstances that we face, to know that we can overcome the challenges we are facing, and that we can cause that next level of evolution as we partner with this higher power and look for the good. So that's my time for today. It's been a thrill and honor to serve you here, to share with you these tools of how to navigate and stand firm when your world is shaking. It has absolutely helped me in my life, and I've been using these tools myself the last several weeks. So I hope that you take these into your life and really apply them. And I'll talk with you all soon. Thank you.
Everyone's applauding. I know everybody's applauding. Go ahead, Rhonda.
Thanks.
Yes, so I didn't know if we have a few minutes left, so that people might have a couple of questions. I don't know.
You might want to share some of the comments.
Yeah,
I'll share mine.
really.
So what was the name of the poet that wrote The Dark Knight?
The Dark Night of the Soul was written by St. John of the Cross.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Kevin, I'm going to share with you what my comment was.
Sure.
I, for one, and I think everyone on this call is really glad you failed that class.
Yeah, I am too. I'm thrilled that I failed that class.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Kevin.
Welcome.
That was an amazing presentation. And for those of you listening or watching in, Kevin owns KC Coaching Incorporated. You can look him up in our provider directory at youdefinewellness.com and connect with him there. If you own the Healthy Living Savings Card by You Define Wellness, Kevin offers a 10% discount on Building Your Dreams coaching.